Okay. Yeah.
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 It's Thursday, September 24th, 2020. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geek Nights. Tonight, continuing our trend, we're talking about werewolves. Considering we just interviewed Epi about the Wolfspell RPG, we also just reviewed Wolf Walkers. We've talked a lot about wolves recently. I mean, Beastars and BNA both have a hot wolf as a main character. It's a weird time. I feel like we should talk about wolves.
Yeah, well, it's also almost October, the Geek Night's birthday of Halloween. So I see no reason not to start doing some monster episodes. Let's get that werewolf action. Yeah.
Especially because in the old days, we would talk a lot about and follow Monster Madness, but I'm kind of sick of the individual who did Monster Madness, and even if he's doing more Monster Madness, I kind of just don't watch his stuff anymore.
Yeah, that was too long ago.
Yeah,
that was another life.
That was definitely another life.
Yes.
I think the moment where that life ended was when we went to the screening of his movie. Not that the movie was bad. The movie was great. We're talking about the EGGN.
You think the movie was great? Okay.
For what it was pretty great. Like, I enjoyed the movie. However,
it was all right. I don't think it was great.
It was, you know what? I'm glad we went and saw it in a theater in the manner that we did. However, I do not ever want to interact with the people who were in that audience with us ever again in my life.
No, I do not.
To quote a Rick and Morty line when he's being booed by a crowd, I relish your boos. I know what makes you cheer.
Right.
I got some news. We try to avoid talking about this stuff on like tech days, but check this out. Facebook, if you weren't aware, is currently in a lot of trouble with the European Union. Mostly around privacy issues and data security issues and data transfers over national borders and all that kind of stuff.
The core of the issue is that Facebook collects data on Facebook users, European people living in the EU, and then that data is moved from the EU over to Facebook servers in the United States. So there is now a database in the United States, U.S. computers, that have an enormous amount of data about European Union citizens that is outside the jurisdiction of the European Union. So the EU is like, hey, if we pass laws or regulations regarding the handling of data about EU citizens, that server over there is going to escape our laws, and that's not cool. You're exporting this data, and we can prevent you from exporting it because we're a government.
Yep. And there's a
legitimate government.
And there's a lot of stuff going on in this space. Like Facebook has, if you aren't aware, a history of misusing, abusing, not securing data. It's a big problem. Like that's a big part of how the 2016 election went the way it went. So Facebook is in trouble with Europe. And there's a bunch of lawsuits going on, but the story, which was from the 22nd, 2 days ago, was that Facebook warned Europe. Basically, they threatened them. It's almost extortion. If Europe doesn't back down on these rules, Facebook will just stop working in Europe.
All right, go for it.
Yeah, but bring it. That is exactly, if I was a European regulator, my first response would be, wow.
It was that easy to get rid of Facebook in Europe? Wow, that's fantastic.
Make them comply with minimal privacy regulations and they're gone?
Yeah, I wish. Oh man, if you had told me it was that easy to get rid of Facebook for a whole multi-country zone, I'd be like, yes, that's great.
So the story that just broke yesterday, so one day later, was that Facebook at least denies that it will pull out of Europe over this issue. But if you read into the article, that's partly because Facebook. I don't know if their bluff got called or what, but they're still trying to sue and avoid these regulations coming at them. And they're arguing that Ireland is treating them unfairly. This is one of those situations that doesn't mean much yet, but depending on how this progresses, there are really three possible outcomes, two of which are really good for us. Either Facebook pulls out of Europe and is no longer a problem in Europe, which will basically really impact Facebook's ability to continue to make money and exist in the US in the long term, probably. Two, the complement to that, Facebook actually gets kicked out of the European Union or gets fined such that they pull out of the European Union to avoid paying those fines. That could go down. Or three, the other way it could go, Facebook complies with Europe's data transfer and privacy rules, which means Facebook is much less of a threat to the world.
Mm-hmm. That's
So
all true.
the only bad outcome would be if the European Union caves and lets Facebook continue to do the things that it does and doesn't actually force this issue to come to a head. I get the impression the EU is more than willing to drag this out and drag Facebook down.
There's also an interesting confluence here where I believe this to be true the last time I read about it, which was admittedly a while ago, so this could be wrong. But, people use Ireland, big companies use Ireland to avoid taxes. But also, I believe that in the EU, they decided to task Ireland with enforcing the GDPR and other tech things. It's like the EU is a whole bunch of countries. So they're like, okay, we made these regulations. Ireland, it's your job to enforce them. We're going to give this one, this one's for you, right?
Yep.
So the same country that's enforcing the regulations is also this tax haven. There's a conflict of interest there, but that goes both ways too, right? It's like Ireland wants companies to funnel their money through them, right?
Yeah.
But they also have the power to pull some, if it's a tech company especially, they got some power over them, right? So there's stuff going on there. If you are interested in that angle, Google it instead of listening to things I said that were probably wrong.
Yep, but I can link to these 2 articles at least, and you can follow this one thread that hopefully will have some consequences for Facebook, and we'll see how things go. In more pressing, I guess, do you have any news?
Is there any news going on these days?
I mean,
Thursday
other than the coup attempt, other than the Supreme Court no longer being like a legitimate body, all that stuff.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it hasn't been a legitimate body for a while.
I think it finally tipped fully over the abyss now.
Yeah.
Considering they already picked a date for voting on confirming the nominee, despite the nominee not actually yet being even named.
Yeah, we'll see about that.
Well, there's no way to stop it.
There is.
Well, there is no procedural way to stop it. There's no legal way to stop it.
Maybe. Yeah, I don't know. All the newses are, like you said, too big to discuss
for 2 white guy podcasters to talk about
in a Thursday section, right? It's like, I don't what small thing has happened. It's like this new game consoles. Who cares, right? It's a PlayStation whatever and an Xbox whatever, and there's a new Nvidia, which is a card, which is basically the same as a new PC console.
Yep.
And Nintendo's gonna have a new Switch next year, even though that's not officially announced yet, right? And I guess the story there that's common to all those things is, people trying to buy a thing, right?
I gave up trying to buy the thing I want to buy.
I think a lot of people trying to buy the thing don't need it. A lot of people trying to buy it are trying to scalp it.
Yep. What's fascinating though is that the one that they all bought, the 380 that everyone's buying.
Well, I'm saying it applies. I said thing because it applies to the PlayStations also, or the Xboxes, right?
Yep.
Yeah. But I think really, why don't any of these companies just institute a queuing system where you put in an order, they'll take as many orders as they can get. Imagine Newegg has 1 million people who want something. Okay, we'll take 1 million orders, and then they start getting stock in, right? And they say, okay, well, every time we get a shipment, it's about 200 of them or something, right? And then they think a shipment's coming, they email the next 200-300 people. They're saying, hey, if you don't cancel, we're going to charge your card, right? As soon as we get one for you.
And on one hand, there's no good reason for them not to do this. It's like an obvious feature.
And you would get more orders on your site instead of people like going to there's a bunch of sites that are like sites you would never buy something from, right? Like you would just never go like if you could just buy everything from Newegg, you would. But people end up buying from some shady eBay place or some other place because
I have never bought something on purpose from eBay directly because I've never trusted it.
People are going to like Best Buys and waiting in line and paying too much, and it's like people would rather just go to Newegg. If Newegg had this queuing system, they would take orders and fill them that other places are getting. Those other places would be severely damaged.
I think I can explain why no one implements this feature. They won't make any more money because they'll sell the same number of the thing.
No, you won't. There will be people who would, to avoid the effort of having to F5, right, would just place their order on Newegg and just wait. Rather than F5 and have to trust some shady site where they end up buying it from.
Those same people will just come back to Newegg like a year later and buy the thing.
Maybe not. I don't know.
Also, they don't have that many to sell, and the basically, I'm confident that building out all that infrastructure, like making a queuing system, just wouldn't be worth the effort. There wouldn't be any actual return for them. Because there wouldn't actually really be more of that thing. And also, the people who would actually queue, because remember, most people wouldn't even engage with the system like that. The people like me who would queue, as soon as I see one for sale anywhere, I'm getting out of that queue.
But you have to be right. But you have to actually succeed at buying it elsewhere, right?
But also, if I can't get it, there's a certain time range beyond which I don't even want it anymore. Like a 3080, I want it because it would be a long-term investment for my pipelines. If it takes a year for there to be in stock enough for me to get one, a year from now, like other video cards are already on the horizon.
All right, well, you get in that queue.
Yeah, but that queue doesn't exist because again, it's the same problem.
You could say, hey, if you're still in the 3080 queue and a 4080 comes out, you're at the start of the 4080 queue.
You know what you could do? You could make a website that's like the whole service is we will queue for things for you.
I mean, I think people did have
There
made
are a
that.
ton of those. I'm actually in some Discords that run bots that queue you to try to buy things. And you know what happened? When the 3080s went on sale, there were a bunch of posts in there right away that said, here are all the queues. And then they never would post an update unless someone actually got one. And there was never a post since then because no one got one.
I think it's, NVIDIA considers, their line at least is like, hey, I mean, the PlayStation, Xbox, they have no line, right? It's like, yeah, that's a consumer product. They should make enough for the demand, right?
Yeah, and they're gonna.
They just suck. They will eventually. NVIDIA, their line is like, hey, we didn't really expect normal people to need this ridiculous thing, right? It's so powerful. Gamers don't need this. We didn't think we would need to make that many before we went on sale because
they thought they could make more later and people will be upgrading
they're like,
over
how many
time.
people in the world actually need this thing? And they think a small number so that's when they start selling. If they thought that all gamers would need a 3080, they would have made more before they went on sale with them.
And
right?
the coins, people aren't mining coins with this shit like they used to. I think I know why there's all this extra demand. One is the AI stuff in it. Like you can do AI stuff with these chips, kind of like in the early days when CUDA started appearing. And you could write code that would run in that CUDA system, all those cores.
I think it's also just been the right amount of time since the previous cards, and people are stuck at home playing games more.
True. I mean, I'm running a 1080, which I've had
the timing of the release is coming up. September is a great time to release a new expensive product. Because it's back to school time and then it becomes holiday time. That's why iPods and iPhones were always September, October, right?
The two things that seem to be driving that demand for this particular video card seems to be like the thing you said, but the two other things are one, a lot more people have 4K monitors now. And
that's true.
The video cards they have, a lot of video cards can't actually drive anything at 4K at a reasonable frame
I have a
rate.
1070. It can do 4K, sure.
Yeah, 1070 is a already relatively expensive card. Because remember, that was expensive when it came out, and it didn't ever get cheaper. Old cards are not.
It's not any cheaper than it used to be.
Not really. You want to buy a 2080? It costs about the same as what a 3080 would cost new, except for the scalpers.
But isn't the 3080 significantly faster?
Yeah, because old video cards don't get cheaper; they just disappear.
But the new one is the same price as the. Anyway,
there's a lot of reasons for that. But the other thing that's going on is actually VR, because the 3080 is necessary to drive high-end headsets fully. No video card up to this point that consumers would have could fully realize the high-end headsets. So very high resolution and very high frame rate. So people who have a Valve Index actually really want this card. I suspect that is a big chunk of the extra people trying to buy it as soon as possible. Because VR is another thing that had a little uptick because people are stuck at home all the time.
Yeah, that's true. VR
there's more people
uptick.
in VR chat now than I ever saw ever before COVID. And
it's true.
VR chat didn't get better. There's not much new in there. In fact, parts of it got worse to accommodate all these new people coming in. Now I go to any public space, there's 1 million people. It's crowded. I gotta go hide and make private spaces to get away from these mobs.
All right.
All right. But anyway, in some topical news to the fact that the world's on fire and there's crises, this news is there's a trend, but the trend in this
I just
type
had
of
an
news.
image of us like sitting at a desk podcasting in like an open field with like zombies walking around and
And we're
the
like, so
woods is
yeah,
on
the zombie
fire
apocalypse
and
is
there's a
coming.
military helicopter flying by and we're
Yep.
just sitting at a desk podcasting like in the middle of the
We're just like, guys, like at the end of the show, like, make sure you go take out some zombies, like, to help us out. We really got to deal with these zombies. But anyway,
So I was biking to work today, and man, usually you know how you shoot a zombie or two on the way to work, right?
Oh,
but
I
man,
always
this
tried
one
to, but I was
zombie
out of-
today,
I ran out
I
of
got
ammo.
like this I got this perfect headshot. The zombie was riding a fixie, so I really wanted to take that one out.
Now I just imagine that scene of, oh, you shot zombies, Flanders. He was a zombie? So this is one of those stories that is so laughable and yet at the same time 100% real and happens a lot. The moral of this news is very simple. Cops lie. Like, cops just lie. Police officers, especially in the United States, will just lie. They lie in court. They lie to you. If a cop ever says, like, hey, you got any weed? Just give it to me. I'll throw it away. No harm, no foul. No, they're going to arrest you as soon as you pull that weed out.
But what are you gonna tell me next? I can't believe that. You're gonna tell me next what? Bricks are red, grass is green.
There are
No
non-red
way.
bricks.
No.
So this story is about a police officer. It's topical because the police officer, what the story was early on, ambushed and shot. You can guess the context of being ambushed. He's a cop in Louisiana. You can imagine everything that happened there and why this is a problem. Black Lives Matter, fuck the police. Anyway, a further investigation, and apparently not even a very long investigation, determined that this officer was not, in fact, shot by an ambush. He was shot by a cop. In fact, he was shot by himself. He shot himself.
Shocking.
And he covered it up by saying he was ambushed. And this was very easily determined to be a lie. He has now been released on bond.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Okay.
he was in custody, and you can read this story. The moral is, like, seriously, a cop will make up a story about being ambushed rather than admit that they shot themselves by accident. The fact that they made up the ambush and lied, and the fact that they shot themselves are both reasons why there should not be police like this.
Yep.
There's a
Was
reason
that your
why.
thing of the day? Was that your thing of the day that a cop shot
That was just
himself?
news. That was topical.
Oh, okay. I thought we were done with news.
But anyway, it's time for Things of the Day. So check this out. I'm not into sneaker culture. Like, I could not give a shit, but I like striking shoes. Also, you can tell I've lived in New York long enough that I said sneaker instead of tennis shoe, like almost all English-speaking people in America say.
I've never not said sneaker.
Yeah, because you've lived in the weird East Coast. Most Americans say tennis shoe.
So
to
what
refer
what
to-
did you think when the movie Sneakers came out?
So
Where you thought that was
sneakers-
just about people sneaking? You didn't understand that it was a pun?
In most of the country, people know that sneaker is a synonym for tennis shoes, but no one uses the word sneaker in most of the country.
It's the only word I used.
Yeah, most people
Ever.
in America will say tennis shoes to refer to any sports shoe. And in fact, I have literally been in conversations where someone said, "Oh, I need some tennis shoes."
Mm-hmm.
They'll even say tennis shoe like it's one word. But I found some really cool, striking sneakers that I like enough to where I actually just bought them like right now, right before the show, before I talked about them. Because
You're gonna wear them?
Yeah, someday when I go outside again. They are sneakers that have the aesthetic styling of a T120 VHS tape box.
Are
with
they
the-
actually comfortable? Or
I
the
don't
right
care.
size?
Oh, well, they're the right size. I got the right one. Like it's but this is the kind of shoe that I would basically wear like when I'm going out at conventions or something, or like maybe I don't know where I'll wear it, but I don't have any shoes that look like anything. All the shoes I have are just running shoes or like the grayest, most generic looking tennis shoes.
All right. Okay. I mean, like, something like that is something I would look at and say that's cool, but would not actually wear.
Well, the thing
or
is, remember,
buy.
I've got that T-shirt that is just a Betamax, like,
Well, a
logo.
t-shirt, I think, with that style is different than a shoe.
yeah, I think the
Depends on the-
shoe. I'm kind of doubling down on my like 80s hi-fi aesthetic. I actually got a bunch of shirts and stuff.
There's plenty of clothing you can get with that aesthetic.
Yep, and I am collecting more and more of it because someday I can go outside and wear clothes instead of just wearing a shirt and whatever and sitting in front of a camera all the time.
A shirt and something.
There's something down there. My bare ass is not touching my chair. Usually.
You laid a towel on the chair. Congrats.
I have, in fact, attended business meetings where I'm wearing a dress shirt on the top and there is just a towel at the bottom. The only the pro move is being so confident that you will not stand up by accident.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you got?
So in other cop news, so here's a situation. I think, where was this? Ohio or something? I don't even know. It doesn't matter. There was some court. And this gentleman was appearing in court to get sentenced. It's like, hey, you got a court appointment. Come in. We're going to, tell you your sentence, right?
Yeah, but already guilty. Like, it's only bad news.
Yeah. The dude was pretty much, I think his crime was he had some meth. He's a meth dude, right?
Okay,
It's like, okay.
Yeah, person who needs help,
whatever.
Not jail, but anyway.
I think he got sentenced to 6 months, right? I guess in prison/jail of some kind. It just said 6 months.
If is what I'm thinking, then he's going to get a lot more than 6 months now.
Maybe. But in this video, because of course, even a small courthouse in a place like that has cameras everywhere, right? And it says security, police, right? Deputies, bailiffs, etc. When they're bringing this gentleman through the courtroom after sentencing, the gentleman runs. And usually you would expect this kind of video to end with like hilariousness as someone who foolishly runs fails to foolishly run.
That's usually the case.
Instead, this video is funny because the man successfully runs, and the 3 Barney Fifes that let him get away, one of them does this. You'll see in the video, they dive. There's like a downward staircase, and the running dude goes around the railing and down the stairs really fast. The cop behind him tries to like jump over the railing to like stop him, right?
But he like dives head first like Superman.
Yeah, and it's like
he just slams straight into the wall, is clearly immediately unconscious, and just slides down the stairs behind the guy.
I don't think he's unconscious. He's not doing well.
He looked unconscious. Yeah, he literally dived head first at speed directly into a wall. You see his head
not good.
Hit the wall, and he just falls and slides down, not moving.
The point is, there's so much to tell in this. The video is the thing of the day because it's hilarious.
The video is pretty. Like you can hear
amazing video.
Sacks.
Yes. So that's why it's thing of the day. But there's so many stories to tell here, right? Is 6 months in prison/jail really what a meth guy needs?
No, they need to be in a hospital or like a treatment place.
Right, it's like you need some. Right, this whole situation is bad, right? The bailiff is basically like, you can see it's like the deputies can kind of run, except for the stupid Superman one.
The bailiff can't really walk.
The bailiff can't really walk, and it's like, is that dude, regardless of any other qualities, is that person qualified for that job? It's a physical job where you have to chase people. Yeah. Right? So it's like
I've been in courtrooms where shenanigans happen and a bailiff had to put somebody on the floor.
Right, exactly. Cops are all bad, right? Yep. And these ones are not only bad people, they're bad at their job.
Yeah.
So,
like you watch the video, it's like, you know what, guy? Go for it.
It's like, even if we're not gonna, you haven't, infringed upon anyone's rights or been racist to anyone or done anything like that, you cops are clearly all not qualified for your jobs. You let just some meth dude just run, and they got away from you. You suck at this. If I fucked up that much at my job, I would be let go.
You and I remember talking about this on Geek Nights back in like 2006 at length, where we were like, most cops are so incompetent that we should have gun cops that are very special, and most cops should not be gun cops. We should not let them have guns.
These cops did not use their guns. Yeah. They just tried to run and grab the guy, but they just failed and sucked at it.
Yeah. In relatively hilarious fashion.
Yes, this is like, you couldn't film something better than this in like a Jackie Chan movie.
So in the meta moment, still at home, we were live at the Penny Arcade Expo. I'm going to get the video on YouTube. We were live at the Crunchyroll Expo. I don't know if I have the rights to put that video on YouTube, but I'll figure out where you'll be able to watch it at some point.
You don't need to, because we've done that panel before.
Yeah, we did a little more, like, it was a better, like, timed, focused version of it, but it's not materially too much different from what we did.
We can always record it again if they're going to be about it, right?
Yep,
whatever.
Yep. But we have a panel coming up at Meg West's. That is a short and super fast version of a panel we've done before. And we're going to be doing more online content, more videos, more stuff as time goes on. I spent all this time making that stupid pipeline to record these panels. I'm going to use it.
That's right.
Otherwise,
the book club book is still The Tale of Genji. We'll read it sometime in the future.
Maybe when it starts getting cold. I could see that being the time.
Maybe. Is there anything else? I don't know. I'm riding the bike to nowhere, and one listener came to watch me ride a bike to nowhere, which it's really boring. I don't know why you would, but you can talk to me while I ride a bike to nowhere, which is nice. Nice for me. Someone to talk to, because no one else is here right now. So.
Yep. But just keep following us in all the places, because we're doing stuff, and we're gonna keep trying to do more stuff. Now that we're past all of our like convention panel deadlines. So now we got some time to back up into some other projects we're working on. So yeah, let's get right into it. It's coming up on October. It's not October yet. And a class of monster that we could discuss at length is the humble werewolf.
So yeah, werewolves, I feel like, you think about the classic Hollywood monsters of Halloween, right? The vampire, the Frankenstein monster.
You got the Dracula, the Frankenstein, the werewolf. The mummy.
The mummy, right? And I feel like werewolf is always sort of like the weakest one.
Well, it depends.
Right?
I definitely noticed throughout my life in pop culture, not just movies, but pop culture in general, like, what are people talking about? What do people dress up as? Among those four monster types, I guess witch is up there too. There's like this ebb and flow of which ones are in season. Like vampires will be really big for a while, but then people really get into mummies for some reason. Mummies are big for a while.
Zombie, I guess, also counts, right?
Yeah,
maybe?
Zombies were real big, in the early to mid 2000s.
Yep.
Like when I was a kid, it was like Frankenstein's, multiple kids dressed up as Frankenstein's monster, every year at Halloween. That was just a thing.
I just feel like werewolf always getting the short end of the stick, right? Because it's if you ever think of any media property where there's all of them combined sort of together.
Yep.
The werewolf is always sort of the first guy, right? The lowest on the totem pole, the weak henchman, right?
Well,
and the Dracula is usually the boss.
Because let's be honest, in almost all media that's ever been made, especially live action, the werewolf costumes look like shit.
That is a factor, I believe, yes.
They look like a person wearing a really shitty dog costume, 90% of the time.
That's true. I think also, though, is that if you think about a lot of media portrayals of werewolf, right? Werewolf is rarely just this direct villain, like werewolf coming to get you, right? It's more that the illness of lycanthropy is the villain, right? And the actual person who is a werewolf is more troubled in sort of a Kafkaesque metamorphosis, similar to The Fly, right?
They're not a bad. It's on the low tier of body horror.
Right, Incredible Hulk kind of situation, right? Where it's you're not some villain who just wants to go around hurting people, right? Like a Dracula who just wants to, be evil, or Frankenstein's monster is also misunderstood, but a werewolf is not an evil. It's just I've got a problem. I keep turning into a wolf.
Well, it depends, because in Dungeons and Dragons, canonically, both werewolves and wolf wares are always chaotic evil.
Okay, bad job, D&D. You messed it up.
So I'm curious, because we were talking about this before the show. Were you aware that in almost all D&D, there is a difference between a werewolf and a wolf were?
I've never heard of a wolf were. In fact, if I Google for wolf were, it's
you're gonna find the second ed.
You're gonna find clothing and apparel for a college whose team is the Wolves.
Type it all one word.
Oh, okay. Let me try it.
And you're going to find the Forgotten Realms wiki that talks about wolfware.
Wolfware, NC State University.
What the fuck?
It's NC State University's all court. It's their
you're
course
spelling
registration
where
program.
wrong, Scott.
Oh.
That's what's
Okay.
going on here. Type wolfware and spell it correctly.
I didn't type. You would think that. I did software, but there's also wolf wear WEAR, and now I'm gonna find clothing and apparel. I bet.
Yep. No, where
Maybe.
is spelled WERE. It means man.
Wolf wear Forgotten Realms.
Yep.
It looks like a sad wolf dude from the second ed monster manual.
The deal with first ed, second ed D&D was that werewolf and wolfware are both two different things, but they're both evil. Werewolves are humans who, because of lycanthropy, transform into wolves. Wolfwares are wolves who, because of reasons, turn into humanoid wolves.
So they don't have the mind of a human. They
have
just
a mind
turn
of a wolf,
into.
but they can kind of turn into a
So if there was a
man.
wolf were and a werewolf standing next to each other, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference. But one of them would transform back into a human, and the other would transform back into a wolf.
Yes.
And you wouldn't know which was which while you were just looking at it.
Yep.
So that's your D. So I bet there's plenty of people who played a D&D plot where it's like, our party member turned into a werewolf. Oh no, now we don't know which one is the werewolf and which is the wolf were. We don't want to kill our party member by accident. Oh no.
Wow.
Yeah.
Where I just can't believe you spelled where wrong. That's really funny to me.
I don't know.
What do I know a wolf wear from a werewolf?
Software. A wolf were.
But werewolves also like werewolf movies, all like the ones that were about werewolves, like you said, they always sort of had like the exact same plot until relatively recently. At least all the ones I remember. But like vampire movies were all over the place. They were like, this one's the good vampire, or it's literally just Dracula, or Blackulas, or all the different ways they go with vampires. But werewolves are always just kind of, it's almost always a dude turns into a werewolf, and they have to kill like the werewolf that bit them to turn them back into a human. Happy ending.
I think what it is, there are comedic Frankenstein, right? That's obvious.
I mean,
right?
the monsters.
Right. There's plenty of comedic vampire, right?
Yep.
But when you think of vampire, you don't think of like
Leslie
comedic
Nielsen
vampire.
is a vampire.
Right. You don't think of that first, right? When you think of Frankenstein, you don't think of young Frankenstein first, right? You think of that second, right? But when you think of werewolf, at least for me, I think of Teen Wolf, American Werewolf in London, like those come first. Right? I don't think of anything with a scary werewolf that's coming to get you that's evil and dark first. Right?
Yeah.
So I think that contributes to the reputation of, werewolf not being, the sort of, head honcho of scary monster.
Yeah, which I think part of it too, like it comes back to movies. The costumes for the werewolves usually were not like, you couldn't really emote or act too much in them. Like Dracula could just dress fancy and actually act. Frankenstein's monster can stand there and act like pretty directly. Mummy is a simple costume. Like it probably doesn't get in your way that much, but a werewolf costume is always all this like weird, ugly prosthesis and big mouth stuff that probably can't move that well for talking and looks weird when they talk.
Especially in older movies. Newer movies, not a problem, right?
Yeah.
But you can do your acting when you're not in wolf form. It's just once you become a wolf that you have the problem of not being able to act, right?
Yep.
So it's the human character that you're sort of identifying with when you're in the story, right? Because, and then once it becomes a wolf, it's just like, it doesn't even talk really. It's just like,
I remember as a kid,
right?
I always wanted like a movie that was like about cool werewolves, but there really like weren't any. At least not any.
You would
like,
definitely
big
have to go.
ones.
You would have to go down the furry road, where when you werewolfed, you could still talk, right? And that I don't think that happens too often. Usually the werewolf is just like more of a beast, right?
Yep.
That just bites.
So I did
and
pull up this
attacks.
list, this Rotten Tomatoes thing of the 25 werewolf movies to watch, and I'm curious to see if we've actually seen all these. Like,
We probably haven't seen that many.
I mean, Frankenstein
because
meets the
honestly,
Wolfman,
werewolf
I've seen.
movies aren't really that great. I mean, if you look at these
No.
Rotten Tomatoes, most of them are low
25,
percentage.
33. The Curse of the
Yeah.
Werewolf is all the way up at 50 in 1961. Oh shit, I think I have seen this movie. I've seen Curse of
Maybe.
the Werewolf.
There are some of these that I've seen and don't remember a single thing about, right? So like, yeah, I've seen Werewolf of London. What do I know about it? I can't remember. I have to watch it again,
You know,
right?
people always say
I've
that
seen
one.
Teen Wolf. I barely remember anything from it.
I remember
We
Teen
saw
Wolf pretty
Underworld
well.
in the movie theater. I remember nothing other than it was dark and gothy, right? I didn't
So-
remember that it had werewolves. I thought it was vampire-y.
Did I see that? I still am not. I don't remember if I saw Underworld or not.
I think we did in the theater, or maybe we saw. I don't remember what we saw.
I don't know if we've seen it based on this.
We might have seen Dracula 2000 and thought it was Underworld.
That is plausible.
Or Dracula 20 something. It was Dracula something.
Well, it's not Transylvania 65000.
I think it was Dracula. I think we either saw Dracula 2000 or Underworld in the theater, and I remember nothing about either one of those.
But I guess Werewolves of London is like everyone always points to is like, oh yeah, that's a classic werewolf movie. But I'll be honest, that movie's not that good.
I mean, it's not bad, but I mean, how much of it? It's obviously not good enough for it to be memorable. Because all I remember about it is that I saw it.
Oh, American Werewolf in London, because Werewolves of London is the song. But did you ever see the sequel, American Werewolf in Paris?
Well, I think there's also the movie that's on this list, which is just Werewolf of London from 1935.
I've never actually seen that one.
No, okay.
Wolfen. I think I've seen Wolfen.
I've heard of Wolfen.
I saw a lot of those.
But yeah, I think also it seems like as far as as like cultural phenomenon go, right? It's like there are people who are like into zombies, right? Zombies are like a thing, right? You go to the store, you can find plenty of zombie things, right? There's several zombie properties, right? You know, you got your Nights of the Living Deads and your, and anything of the Deads, right? And you've got your what's the other one? The
World War Z?
Yeah, no, well, you got that's one. The one that was a comic and then became a TV show.
Walking Dead?
Yeah, that one.
I was going to ask. I don't remember your zombie
vampires.
properties.
Yeah, vampires. You got plenty of vampire properties going on, right? There's
and vampires have had multiple reimaginings in recent history.
You got your Anne Rices, you got your Vampire Hunter Ds, you got your Castlevanias, you got everything.
Remember at the beginning of Vampire Hunter D, the girl is like, "Oh, so you're a vampire hunter? My father was a werewolf hunter." And as a kid, much like Damn It Dwayne with the horses in Utena, I remember as a kid, I was like, "What? Tell me about the werewolf hunters. Is there Werewolf Hunter D? Is there a movie I can watch that covers that?" Because I was in 4th grade. What the fuck did I know?
That's right. But when you think about werewolves, there aren't big werewolf properties that have like continued. Not like a TV show. I can't think of any comic book, right? The werewolf is like a side character in another horror thing. I think there was a werewolf in that Twilight thing had a werewolf, right?
Yep.
But it was like, wasn't that like where one was werewolf, one was vampire? I think.
And it was not really about. And the werewolves were weird and different.
Yeah,
which could be fine. Like I like reimagining monsters like that.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's
cool.
But
like, if you look at this list,
but I'm saying it wasn't a werewolf continuing property thing where there became like werewolf fans who were interested in werewolf content that all over the place.
I think most of those people
the people who are zombie fans, they just want everything zombie, right?
I think most people who are werewolf fans just became furries.
Could be.
Because I look at this movie list. The number 1 is The Wolfman, and number 2 is American Werewolf in London. The Wolfman is like the archetypical, that is not a wolf, that is just a man wearing a like dog costume. And it's got 90%. Like I remember the movie not being that great even as a kid. I guess the acting was good, but the movie was just like not that great. And particularly the werewolf transformation scenes were always like extra shitty in these movies.
Well, sometimes they were a combination shitty, but also impressive at the same time, depending on the year it came out and the techniques that were used. Right?
Yeah, like a 40s movie gets a lot of a pass for like they were doing what they could.
Right. It's like simultaneously not good enough, but also like, oh, that's actually like the highlight of the film right there, right?
It's tricky though, because it's highlight of the film from its era, but also not good enough. But in the modern era, it just looks awful. Like it doesn't hold up.
Right. So the general, the generic story of werewolf, right, is that somehow, and this is the thing, is like despite werewolves being like this sort of second tier, second class monster, right? Everyone knows how werewolves work, right?
Just like you ask any random person, like, what's the deal with Spider-Man? They know. Ask any random person, how do you fight a werewolf? They'll be like, yeah, silver bullet.
And I think that comes from the fact that even though there isn't like something focused all about werewolves, right? If you look at any other intellectual property story thing, any syndicated property, any ongoing thing, right? You're going to find a werewolf episode, right? You'll find like, I don't know if this is true or not. I'm just guessing, right? It's like I'm thinking of things that have a lot of episodes.
Like Adventure
right?
Time has multiple werewolf episodes.
Right. I'm sure that DuckTales probably has a werewolf episode. I'm sure that what else has a lot? I'm sure there's some Looney Tune werewolf episode somewhere.
Is there a werewolf in
know.
JoJo's Bizarre Adventure?
Maybe, I don't know. But it's like just think of anything that has a lot of episodes, and there's probably a werewolf episode in there somewhere, right?
Werewolf, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
Probably,
there is a werewolf episode in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
There's probably Spider-Man fights a werewolf, probably, here or there, right? It's like, yeah.
Oh, there's like a werewolf arc.
Oh, okay. But yeah, that is why everyone knows about Werewolf, because it's like no matter what you're into, Werewolf showed up at some point, right? And it's like, yeah, if there's a full moon, the werewolves turn into a wolf uncontrollably. As soon as the sun comes back, as soon as the moon goes away, they turn back. If you get bitten by the werewolf, guess what? You're a werewolf now.
Yep.
And if you need to kill him with a silver bullet, otherwise you can just sort of, even if you chop him up, like I guess they heal like Wolverine or something.
Yeah, and that varies from like story to story. Like in some
obviously,
cases,
even vampire rules vary as well, but those are the basics.
Sometimes the werewolf
right?
is just a monster. Sometimes it's fully like cognizant of its situation. Though the latter is pretty rare and mostly more recent.
Yep. But yeah, and it's like werewolf. I don't know. What else is there to say about werewolf?
I don't know. I guess as a kid, I remember like werewolf media in general always annoyed me because the rules where like nothing ever changed between all the media, and there was never an interesting story. It was never like someone becomes a werewolf and it fucking kicks ass. Let's go. It was, but there are vampire movies.
That's true. That's a good angle for that.
That's literally what bothered me as a kid, is that vampires, there could be awesome vampires, but werewolves were never awesome. They were just a disease that had to be cured by the end of the movie. I remember the werewolf media that I remember the most clearly, weirdly enough, is Stephen King's Silver Bullet. I'm pretty sure
I never saw that.
You never did?
No, I never heard of it.
Really? I want to say it came out in the 80s.
You know how many things Stephen King has made?
I've read Stephen King's fantasy novels that are not even published under his own name, so
They're not Dark Tower or whatever?
Well, so they may be in the Dark Tower universe if you ask him.
Okay.
But like there's lore about that, I guess. I don't like the Dark Towers. I didn't really care.
Yeah, I've never read a Dark Tower, so I don't know.
Yeah, but I've read some of his fantasy books that might be in the Dark Tower universe, but were published under a different name.
Were they werewolves?
I did not know they were Stephen King at the time. So in 1539, Martin Luther, like the Martin Luther, used the word beer wolf to describe a hypothetical ruler worse than a tyrant who must be resisted. And there's a whole article here on beer wolves, which I'm trying to figure out this etymology because I don't actually know, like, my knowledge of the origin, like I know the origin of werewolf stories, like Vlad Tepes, that kind of thing.
Yep.
But the origin of werewolves, I mostly just know vaguely Scandinavian stories about people getting bit by wolves going crazy, probably just rabies.
Yeah, but okay.
But I don't know any deeper than that. Like I've never really
I don't know anything.
Looked
what
into
do I know?
The history of werewolf stuff.
I don't know anything about it either. Why am I qualified to do this podcast about a thing I know nothing about? I'm just talking about what I do know. Right?
So where would you rank a werewolf then compared to other monsters we might talk about or have?
How are we ranking a werewolf? Right? Are we ranking it in terms of like how strong it is?
Let's go by
and
power
like a fight?
level first. How powerful
power level?
Like on average, how powerful is a werewolf compared to Frankenstein's
monster? Well, if we're
monster?
going with the fact that a werewolf, when it's not in wolf form, it's a person, so that's garbage, right? So it's not even monster level. So when it's in monster form, it doesn't have human brain. It has wolf brain, which is still dangerous because it could, like, a wolf is dangerous. You meet one in the woods, you're not too happy about that.
Here.
Right. But, that's obviously immediately losing to any monster that has human thought, like a vampire, right? It's like no chance. Like obviously a real human with a gun beats a wolf, so a vampire could have a gun and just shoot the wolf. Right?
Gotta have a silver bullet though.
Yeah, a Frankenstein monster has slight human cognition, not as much as a vampire, but it's ridiculously strong. It could definitely beat a wolf in a fight, so I don't see a reason why it couldn't beat a werewolf in a fight, except it might not have a silver bullet available. That might be a disadvantage. So it's like, I think that fact that you if we're going with the you have to use a silver bullet to beat it in a fight, then it can't lose to anything that isn't intelligent enough to use a silver bullet.
Yep, it's a lot like in D&D where you got a regular sword and maybe you also have a silver sword you carry around just in case.
So like, even if there was a monster that was 10 times stronger than the werewolf, right? Let's say like a Sharknado or some shit, right? Well, a Sharknado doesn't know anything about silver bullets.
Sharknado cannot come after you of its own volition like a werewolf can.
Okay, but let's say
the
there's
shark
some
in the
sort
Sharknado is not controlling the NATO.
There's some sort of Junji Ito-esque, great white shark with legs that walks around on land, right? And it would just eviscerate the werewolf in terms of strength, right? It's just so dangerous. But the werewolf wouldn't be dead, and the shark can't use a gun. So the werewolf is going to win eventually.
Yeah, I think
right?
about most media I think about that's like popular and known about werewolves, it's usually they beat the werewolf by tricking the werewolf. Because the werewolf is easily tricked. They lure it somewhere and then they get it with the silver bullet. Like they got to plan it in advance.
Can't you just walk up to it and shoot it? Why do you got to lure it?
I mean, where is it? Is it coming after you right now? What if, like Silver Bullet, it's going around killing random people in the town. And this kid is trying to hunt it down.
Gotta, I see. Yeah. That makes sense.
We should watch Silver Bullet as a movie night. Do a show on it. It's a pretty good movie because it's about the kid. It's more of
it says 45% here on your Rotten Tomatoes list.
Wikipedia says, an authoritative source, this film is considered a cult classic.
That's not always a positive thing.
Also, it's got both a young Corey Haim and a young Gary Busey.
Okay. One of the Coreys.
But the movie mostly focuses on, it's more of a kids on bikes movie, like that genre, than it is a werewolf movie. It just happens to involve a werewolf is the villain the kids on bikes are going after. It's basically just like a long form episode of Scooby-Doo.
Yeah, I mean, when I think of werewolf, Scooby-Doo is honestly the first thing I think of is someone pretending to be a werewolf as a Scooby-Doo villain.
Yep,
right?
If I hear werewolf, the first thing I think is like D&D werewolf, and then number 2 is Scooby-Doo werewolf, then everything else is after that.
Yep. After that is, comedy movie werewolf, right? Teen Wolf.
But the Scooby-Doo werewolves were always extra worthless because they were always sadder than the regular old villains. Because it is, of course, just like the old white guy in the end when they take the werewolf mask off. But the werewolves in Scooby-Doo were never at any point threatening. Like the pirate ghosts in Garfield were scarier than the werewolves in Scooby-Doo.
I mean, I think werewolves in general aren't that threatening. Right?
Well, look, they can only come out in the under the light of the full moon. Mm-hmm. So they can't really They
don't have any magical sort of power to them, right?
Other than their Wolverine power to turn into a werewolf and not.
It's like you could just sort of lock your house and they can't get in. Just not even for the Dracula reasons. It's like
I'm thinking to smash the door down.
Sure, okay, but it's like
they often do in movies.
They're not creeping around the corner like, friggin' Alien, right? Alien is way more dangerous than a werewolf.
I mean, Alien is more dangerous than anything we're talking about right here. But what if a werewolf bit the alien?
Oh shit!
Because now
I don't
you
know
got
if it can get
his
teeth through the exoskeleton.
I don't know how deep you got to bite. That's never also consistent.
The predator is way more dangerous than the werewolf. No, it's not even close because the predator knows how to use a silver bullet.
Yeah, predator can hunt an alien. Predator
has guns.
Predator is literally like, well, I'm going to go hunt a werewolf. Let me get my specialized werewolf hunting spaceship because that is my entire culture.
That is the thing is that all of even Frankenstein's monster, right, doesn't have any magical powers, right, but is still sort of supernatural in the fact that it is it's made of human body parts resurrected from but yeah even though the fact that the werewolf transforms is supernatural and it can't be killed without the bullet or whatever, the lack of supernatural power is no form of mist or it's literally not that much more dangerous to you than an actual wolf, just slightly larger and scarier, right?
Yep. I guess the main difference would be that one thing in a lot of werewolf media.
And regular wolves have a pack. A pack of regular wolves is way scarier than one werewolf.
Yeah, but what about movies where there's a pack of werewolves?
That's scary.
Yeah.
I think that's what you have to do if you're going to do the scary werewolf movie. Is you have to have a whole pack of them.
That is the plot of American Werewolf in Paris, the sequel to American Werewolf in London.
Oh, okay.
But
and
the plot
they
is
have to-
also the people who are werewolves make a drug that they can use to turn themselves into werewolves whenever they want, and it's really, really stupid. They also set up a romance between the main dude and the girl. The girl's the werewolf, and he's trying to cure her of the werewolf, like the lycanthropy. But spoilers, because this movie fucking sucks. But they set up this romance, and then they have the scene where like she transformed into a werewolf, and it is just super gross and like just not. The romance feels weird the whole movie after that scene because of how gross the transformation is.
Okay.
The movie is so dumb. Like, do not watch that movie under any circumstances.
But I'm saying, just like imagine, a bunch of werewolves that move like a regular pack of wolves, right? And they have a villainous intent, a unified villainous intent, right? I think that could work.
Where I think werewolves work the best is actually in role-playing games. Like, that is where, like, if you're a game master, it doesn't even matter what the system is. Werewolf is a similar type of plot to, like, Body Snatcher in terms of, like, how you're going to mess with your players. But Werewolf just opens all these possibilities. Like, you may decide a character's a werewolf and, like, stuff's happening at night. And the party's like trying to figure out who the murderer is, but one of the players is actually the murderer, and because it's a werewolf thing. I think I've literally played in that game 2 or 3 times in my life playing D&D.
Yeah, I think that definitely works because, like I said, the werewolf is not a straight villain.
Yeah.
And it's most of the time it's a normal person. So you're playing, a character in some game. It's like, okay, you can just tack a werewolf on to whatever else you're doing. And it's not actually that disruptive to your, what your game. If you suddenly tack vampire on or something else, that's like a huge deal, right? Can't go out in the sun.
Yeah.
Right.
But vampire
it's like,
basically,
I'm a werewolf. Okay, that's like a modifier. It's almost like equipping an item. Like,
yeah.
it's pretty low tier.
Also, it's a role-playing game, so you can roll with it. Like, maybe the whole party's like, let's just be werewolves now. This is way better. I'm way stronger.
Yeah, we talked about that on Tuesday.
Yeah.
Only that was regular wolf.
But I guess what it does is it's like werewolf stories in games tend to be more around the mystery of who is the werewolf. Where vampire movies aren't usually who's Dracula. Like, Dracula's right there. How do we get him is usually the plot. Or how do we protect the person he bit once before he comes back and finishes the job? But they tend to know who the vampire is in a lot of vampire stories. Nobody knows who the werewolf is, and that's the plot of most werewolf stories.
Yeah, it'll just be night. There's some, someone's getting bit, and it's like, well, it could be anyone that wasn't with me, right? And I think that's why, we think about the game Mafia is also sometimes called Werewolf, right? Because it's like, who is the one doing these murders, right? And it's like mystery, who we don't know, and even the person doing it might not know.
That is the magic for a game. When the culprit is a player who does not know they're the culprit, that in almost any system will lead to really, really fun moments.
But yeah, I guess that's all. Can't think anything else to say about Werewolf, and I'm getting hungry.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's people out there who know way, 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 way more about Werewolf than we do, so you should talk to them.
Yep. Or Wolf Wares, if you want to talk about Wolf Wares.
We're just trying to make an entertaining podcast and, keep up our streak routine here.
We stayed away because, like, vampires, I think we both have a lot more to say. I think I can talk about vampires a lot longer than I talk about werewolves. Partly due to the lack.
I've actually read Dracula.
Yeah,
the book.
I think partly it's like you said, it's due to the like relative lack of good and compelling werewolf stories that aren't the archetypical werewolf story. Like we need a lot.
And like I said, the werewolf is always an episode of something else. There's never the ongoing werewolf thing. It's very rare.
We need we need the deconstructed werewolf story, just like we got deconstructed magical girl, deconstructed vampire. We need really good deconstructed werewolf that isn't just their furries.
I feel like there's definitely been plenty of attempts, but none of them have obviously hit it big.
Yeah.
Right.
So last thing before you go, one thing. So the game Werewolf and Mafia, I did play that Among Us game. It's set in space, nothing to do with werewolves, but it's the same game.
Yeah.
It solves a fundamental problem of Werewolf and Mafia. The Mafia, in this case, the imposter, has to get away with their shit for real live and do stuff.
Yeah, I know. I've seen the game. Yeah,
I played it with our friends. It's actually really good. You should play it.
Yeah, I know. I've seen. I was basically, just following my Steam policy of, even though it's $5, my policy is don't buy the Steam game unless you're about to play it right this second.
That's a good
So
move. I bought
so
it
it's like,
because I played it right that moment.
yeah, as soon as I'm about to play it right this moment, like someone's like, "Hey, let's play it right now." I'm like, "Okay, $5, let's play." But then I just haven't, because that moment has not come yet.
Oh,
But yeah, I
and
saw what kind of game it was.
yeah.
It's,
Oh, and so last we
I saw a
got
funny clip. I saw a funny clip on Twitter where a dude walks in a room, sees another dude, and sees some legs with no torso on them, and a bone sticking out with some blood spurting. And then they leave the room, and then immediately the game stops, and it's like, who is the whatever imposter? And it's like, the person who was in the same room with the legs.
So the deal is you can't communicate during the game until
But that person knew who it was. They
exactly
just witnessed.
until a meeting is called. The only way to call a meeting is to find a dead body and like do a thing to report it, or run all the way back to the cafeteria in the middle of the map and hit a button. So if you
They were
witness a
11.
murder, the murderer might like chase you down before you get to that button.
Yeah, maybe that's very. They were 11.
It is very they were 11. So
Yeah.
that lets you eat. We have a question from the stream. I think we can answer pretty quickly. How do you feel about the werewolf story in Skyrim?
I played Skyrim. I beat that game, and I do not remember any werewolf action.
Ah.
So that tells you how much, or it tells you the way I play Skyrim. Because I've also played Oblivion and beat. I didn't. Those are the only two old scrolls. It was Oblivion and Skyrim, and I beat both. And I remember not much.
Yeah. I was trying to think back to Skyrim. I was like, where
beat
were
'em
the
both.
werewolves? I didn't
Yeah,
beat
in
Skyrim.
Skyrim,
I gave up at
remember.
some. I got like 10 hours in, and I just kind of.
I remember the
out.
start where I had to punch a dragon. And I remember climbing up a mountain where there was like a yeti. And I remember yelling to knock bad guys down and then stab them with my sword.
Did you get all three Fusro Da, or are you just like fussing?
No, yeah, I got the whole thing. I beat the whole game. And then I remember at the end of the game, you went up this big mountain where there was a really big dragon, and then you beat him. And then there was, you also went to like this hall of like, you went to like Viking heaven, basically, a Norse-ish heaven place. And you saw all like the great champions there. And then after that, you beat the boss, or before. That's basically all I remember from Skyrim.
You know
I
what
don't
else we
remember
really
anything
need
else.
here? We need more like non-wolf wear things to make these stories interesting too. Give me some werebears.
Mm-hmm. I also remember from Skyrim there was some sort of like old ancient sort of a token-esque dwarven hold under the ground that had been abandoned. It was like a big factory kind of place, and I remember going down there and cleaning it out, and that's where all the good loots were.
All right,
And yeah, that's what I remember from Skyrim. I don't remember any werewolves. I'm sure they're in there, but I remember them not.
All right.